Here. There we go. Now we're all set up. So I apologize about that. Whoever might be out there, you should see the invitation in there now for the meeting. All right. A lot going on this week, more than I could say grace over, I'm afraid. Okay, so you should, if you go to the announcements, I've got the invitation there for you. And let's see here. We'll go down to the modules. Of course, Good Friday we've got Good Friday coming, so everything is due on Thursday. And we'll roll down here. Now we're working ahead, and we've been working on the access cases. So let me pop this back up. And I want to see where I think I had left us off. I think we had worked on 4. And let me open this up here for just a second in the resources tab. And we did the bill of materials. Okay, so garden. All right, yeah. We're going to work on case number 5. All right. And you're going to find this is Cascade Pharmacy. And then the companion case is out of the Lambert text, chapter 11. So you'll want to go ahead, and this should be over in the files section or in the welcome section. So it's going to be that case 5. So I'm going to go up to the welcome section, or then I'll go to the files. It's one of the 2 places. And this is about a pharmacy, and we're going to take a look at doing some specialized queries and a little bit more work with tables, etc. And there's 3, there's 4. And here's this one. It's ACCDB 5 done September or spring 15. So this is an old case, but got some good stuff in it. So let's go ahead and download it. And download is called, wait a minute here, get the wrong one. I don't know Hollister, I want the pharmacy case. Hang on a minute. And let's see here, Hollister. Just a second, guys. I want to look at this and see. Hollister's the next one. Okay, it's 4. I'm sorry. It's ACCDB 4. My apologies. Okay, here we go. So let's go back over to the modules and we'll grab it. It's 4 is the one we want for Cascade Pharmacies. And we'll download that one. And we'll take a look at, there it is, XLS for SP15. So let's download that one. And that's the one that's Cascade Pharmacy. Not XLS, I want ACCDB. I'm telling you what, this has not been a week for me. Oh, in some ways a misery. ACCDB 4 done. That's the one we want. I'm so sorry. Cascade. All righty. So you'll want to go ahead and download that to your desktop. And we'll just go ahead and go through that business. And so it's Cascade. And all righty now. Make sure I've got Cascade down here. There it is. We're going to open it up. This one's a little bit different. We'll take a look at, we'll do some specialized queries as we get into it. Now, in the companion text, so let me pop us back over here to Vital Source. Well, this is a textbook. Is out of chapter, I believe it's chapter 4. and we want chapter 11, and the case in that is the garden case. Let me mute those guys. There we go. And so you'll want to go back and look at that and over in chapter 11, okay? And pop over there real quick. Now let's get the table of contents out going here. And there's 10 of these, making databases user-friendly. And we'll take a look at this. This is from the garden, and garden 11 is the case. And you'll find that over there in the companion files. And that's where if you want to go step by step by step by step, you can do that if you so desire. You'll find that over in the files section over here in Canvas. And that's going to be in the companion files for the Lambert text. I think I've got them on my desktop, so I'll take a look at them here real quickly. And I think that I do. It'll be garden 11 if this is the right batch here. There it is. And you'll see it's garden company 11. Okay. And there's a couple of things in this that are along with the database. One of them is an icon, and the other is a logo. Now, what they're going to do there in chapter 11 is walk you through the process of creating a form. Form is an object that we use to input data that goes into a table. And my hunch would be that the logo is probably, they want you to insert it into the form, and you can do that. It's pretty easy. We'll take a look at that here in just a little bit. And you can use icons. When you go to the form and you go to the design view for a form, you can pretty it up, make it look nice, put icons in it, use a logo, all of those kinds of things to make it more user-friendly as you're inputting the data. And the whole idea of a form is to stop you from having to use just enter data into tables repetitively. So there's the Garden Company 11. I'm going to make a copy of that and paste it on here. And let's see if it's going to be nice to me today. And then you'll notice there's the icon, and then the logo as well. And that's what that's basically going to be doing. Now, let's open up Cascade for just a second. As I said, this is the old case that I've got. We'll want to look at it. And let's over here, if you look at the shutter bar, you're going to see we've got the list of objects. Now, just to remind you, when you navigate through the shutter bar, okay, when you click on that down button, you've got some choices. You can look at all of the objects that you have in your database, or you can limit it to either to tables, to queries, to forms, or to reports. That's up to you. I like all access objects unless what typically what you would find if you're a really heavy user of access is you'll find a bunch of tables, not that many queries, and not that many reports. And just think of this kind of like think of it like an inverted pyramid where you've got all these tables that have all these data, and then you run a query to extract data from those tables, and then you might sometimes do some further extraction to put them into a report form. And that's really just the whole process of what we call data mining and reporting for all intents and purposes. And we've used those analogies like a data warehouse, etc. We use those terms like data mining because we literally do dig into a bunch of data that we've collected and try to find some value in them. And it's typically going to be, the value that's there is going to be based upon one of two things. Some type of transactional data that we have that gives us some insights on what's happening in terms of transactions internally, and that could be externally. So give me an internal example. One would be how I'm dealing with suppliers. When we did the little thing in Excel where we created the little did the macros, and we pressed on one and we got the slow vendors, and the other we got the fast vendors. those are transactions that we want to try to monitor, okay? And then if we look at people who purchase purchase things from us, that's another where we want to look at those data and see if we can find patterns in the transaction. And I've said it many, many times, you're going to hear a lot about this when you go out to work. You're hearing people use the word big data, data lakes, data pools, all of that. It's predicated on one important idea, and that is the law of large numbers, okay? If you are going to fish for sharks, go to the ocean. Don't go to Lake Texoma. One of the things that we see this, I serve as a reviewer for a couple of journals, and one of the things I've found is that when you have authors, they'll submit work, okay, and if you've had any stat, you'll really follow with what I'm saying, but they'll do a high number of tests of statistical significance. And they're always looking to see if something is like below alpha 0.5. And if it's below 0.5, then they think they've got something that they can report. Now, if it's a practical significance, who knows? But when they do 20 of those, the odds are that they'll get something significant. Well, the more you put your pole in the water, the more fish you're going to catch. It's that simple. So there's some procedures out there like the Bonferroni procedure that catches that type of stuff. It's the same thing now with big data. If I collect data on 20 million people, I'm going to start to see patterns. And so that's one of the things we try to look for. And again, one of the reasons I say when you go to work, you're going to work with a tool that's a combination of Excel and Access, is because once I've collected those data and I've extracted them, okay, I've run a query and I've got them all combined, then I want to do some analytics with them. And I'm going to have a tool like, say, a SAS Visual Analytics, SAS, SAP, Oracle, that's going to allow me to look for patterns, because we always look for patterns. If you go over here in the hallway and you look at the TV and you watch, if they have MSNBC on, and they'll have the stream, the ticker tape at the bottom of it with what stocks are trading for, etc. And they might even have a little small part of the screen where they show you what we call the intraday trading, and that is the trading that's occurring within a given day. And it looks crazy. You know, you have a line graph with grass lines going up and down, up and down. But if you took that and you stretch that over a 10-year period, it's going to smooth that out a whole lot, because you're going to see things from a whole different perspective. So we look for patterns, any types of patterns that we can find. And that's the name of the game today. And the reason we put you through these courses is so that you are ready to go out and go to work in an environment where people have these high-powered applications where they can pull up millions of pieces of data, and you're going to be the one who's going to be given a dashboard type of application where you're going to be asked to run what we would call some regular reports and queries, and then you'll be asked maybe every now and then just some off-the-wall stuff to try and find it. And this is what we call query discipline, and making sure that you have reports, etc. Well, let's look at this, and again, let's take a look here, and we've got this cascade, okay? And let's open the table up. All right, and this is from a company that is they're a pharmacy, all right? And we've got the date. This is a list. This is a fact table. It's a list of sales, and what we've got here is the date the sale occurred. Okay, we've got the drug code. Each of these drugs have a code, and then we have the drug name. All right, and then we have the supplier. Then we have the number of tabs, and then the milligrams per tab. Now, if I remember correctly, like any pharmacy, there are going to be certain drugs that have to be severely monitored and washed. And these are going to be, people go to Walgreens and sometimes they'll get some really heavy duty drugs that they have to take. And those are heavily monitored. They have to sign, they have to show an ID, all this stuff. They probably have them in a safe, etc. Then there are other drugs that the state tracks just because there can be problems. If you're like me and you're an allergy sufferer, there's nothing more frustrating than going up to buy some Claret and finding out, I've got to sign it and I can only have enough for 15 days and all this. Anyone could look at me and tell I'm running a meth lab. But they had to do that because they'd have people going from store to store to store buying Claritin and products like that to home cooked meth. So they monitor the drugs. So it's the same story here. This pharmacy has drugs, particular types of drugs that have to be monitored. Now, if you look, you'll see once we go past the supplier, we've got the dispensing data, okay? And we have the number of tabs and the milligrams per tab. So if we wanted to know, the total milligrams dispensed, it's simple. We take the number of tabs times the milligrams per tab, and the government probably has some standards on how much of that you should sell and all of that. The monitoring of the pharmaceutical industry, you can thank Elvis Presley for that. His pharmacist, who just gave him drugs like candy, was the inspiration for a lot of state and federal laws on monitoring doctors and what they call into a pharmacy, and pharmacies putting them on the hook too. So a lot of these controlled substances, anything that could become anything that could be considered addictive, or even sell, like now all the opioids that are out there, those are strictly monitored. So this company's got to monitor their sales, and they've got to monitor what's going on in terms of their sales, et cetera. Now, if I was just looking at this from a purely commercial standpoint, you can see that I've got some data here that I could use with this table. I could send it out to export it to Excel, and I could take a look at which supplier I sell the most, what supplier do I sell the most drugs to. I could look at the drug that we sell the most of. There's just any one of a number of reports we get, and as you look at this table, okay, you can see I could probably get that information and then put it into a visual pattern or visualize it far easier than trying to do it in Access, okay? But we've got the table. Let's look at the design view. And this is one of the other things also. Now, it's unlikely that at work you'll be able to go down into the depths of your company's database and see how the tables are constructed, etc. But it's good for you to understand it so you can have intelligent communication, intelligent conversation with the person who does. It'll depend on your reporting level. Here we've got the date and time, okay? And notice here's again one of these things, and the authors, I think of whoever came up with this case, or I don't remember. But the bottom line is this. One of the things I would say if we were doing this case, all right, is required. Should we require it? Of course we should. We don't want to ever have a field where it's not required. So we're going to go ahead and put yes. I'd like to know the date it was sold. And is it indexed? We don't have enough cases to really worry too much about that. Then let's see, do we have any text alignments for dates? Do we have an input mask? We could do that. And that second line there, click on it and then click on the, we'll save the table now. Okay. And how do we want? Do we want a long date, short date? How do we want it? I'd say let's do a short date. Next. Finish. And then we've got control of how the data are inputted. Okay, we've talked about that before. Let's go down to the drug code. And again, here we go. Yes, we want the drug code required. Now we have something interesting here because we say, yes, duplicates are okay. All right. And the reason is because we may sell the same drug to several people. That makes common sense. Do we allow zero length? That's a sketchy one. And I would probably say you don't want to because you've got a drug code that's missing. But because it's required, you don't have to worry all that much about it. You shouldn't if somebody leaves it, but you'd have to see. My hunch would be to say to err on the side of caution and say, yes, no, we don't allow zero length. So I'm going to go ahead and, you see, we always start with the tables. That's because if we have junk in the junky tables, we'll get junky queries and bad information. All right, we've got that. Okay, let's go back down to the drug name. Again, is it required? Yeah, why not? Let's put yes. And will we allow zero length? I'd put no. And is it indexed? I don't have enough of them to worry about that. So I'm in good shape there. And then we'll come down to the supplier. Yes, we need to put the supplier as required. And no, we don't want to allow zero length because then we're creating null data. And nulls and zeros can be very confusing. Nulls especially because we don't know if someone forgot to put something in or who knows. Null means and you don't want that. So we'll put zero length. You should never have a record that has a null value. You just should. Then let's go to tabs. And do we have a default value or a validation? No. Is it required? Yes, we want the tabs. Okay. And it's not indexed. Now we could use and put some validation rules in here. And if we know, for example, that there's only 10 milligrams of a particular drug, when we dispense a particular drug, we only give, say, 10 micrograms or 10 tablets. Okay. Then we'd have a validation text. If somebody says 15, it'll say stop. No, only 10. So, but we're just not. There's really no point in dealing with that as a default value because the manufacturer may come along and change that on you. Is it required index? No, but it is required. So we've got that. And then we have the milligrams per tab. Same story down here. Yes, we want it required. So far, so good. You said, boy, this sounds starting to sound repetitious. Yes. The reason is if again, the table is the heart of everything. If you've got junk in a table, you won't get good information. You'll get a lot of anomalous data and reports that are really no use. And you've spent your time and your money and you've wasted it. We'll close it off. We'll say yes. Okay. And now we're ready to look at some of the queries. But before we do this, let's explore this a little bit more and come up to the top here and click Database Tools. Okay? Everybody find it? Database Tools. Yeah? Now, you look over here and you'll see a thing called Relationships. Click on it. And let's see if we've got anything that's got any relationships. We've got the one table, so we're good. We'll close that off. So we've got just one table, no big deal. Click back up on Database Tools, and you'll see the little thing that says Object Dependencies. This is a tool that lets us see how the data flow. And click on it and say, okay, let's do it. And if you notice over on the right-hand side, you're going to see the Object Dependencies result box. Now, you got two kinds of dependencies. Those where somebody depends on the object, that is objects that depend on me, or objects that I depend upon. So a database is a system in the sense that I have forms that I put data into, populate a table. I run queries from the table. I can even run queries on queries if I care to do that. And then I produce a report. So that's input, process, or throughput, and then output. So let's look at this one. Let's click on task number 1. Well, let's click on Cascade and notice the objects that depend on me. And you'll see those queries, task 2 and task 4, depend upon the table. So if I want to know what's the origin of the data in my system, I can have it. Now, again, Access lets you see the same kinds of stuff that you would see if you were a database administrator, okay? So that you can understand what they're going to be thinking about and looking at. You're the decision maker. You're not going to be programming stuff. You might do a little code if you choose, but for all intents and purposes, your job is to make sure that you have the relevant data so you can take that data and turn it into information. Information is data I can use for decision making. Now, for a DBA, first thing I want to know is, okay, where does this stuff come from? Okay? So that query, task 3, where did it come from? Well, it came from the Cascade table. Same thing for task number 4. Where did the data come from? And then any reports, I've got a report down here. So this is the source of the data. Now you need this for a simple reason. If you have to backtrack and find out, why did I get all of this anomalous data, for example, or if I get something that surprises me, I know how to track it back. Now, what will normally happen when you're at work is this, okay? You'll get some report and you'll go, this makes no sense. You'll call the folks over at IT, or maybe you'll call the people who are your vendors who provide you that type of service, and you'll say, I'm looking at something, I don't get it. Well, the first thing they're going to start to do is to basically walk backwards and reverse engineer it to see where it all came from. And they'll find it at a query or a table of either one of those two. And because either of those is a result set. And then for all intents and purposes, okay, they'll go, okay, well, here's the source of it. And they'll go, oh, wow. Yeah, okay, we see why you got that because, well, yeah, unfortunately, it went for 6 months and we didn't ask for the client's phone number. And you're going, what? It's like that TV. If you ever see the commercial with Mayhem where he's breaking in the guy's window and the guy's going, he's stealing his car, he's going, what? You'll have those moments when someone will say, well, no, we didn't get the name of the manufacturer on that product. What? So that's one of the reasons you'll want to be diligent as you look at reports. If you see stuff that's missing, that's the time to ask questions, to say, I'm not getting this, I'm not understanding, okay? And I'll remind you of that over and over because that will be the first thing you'll run into in dealing with the database. Now, let's look at task 1 on the queries. We'll click that. That's kind of different. And objects depend on me, okay? And we got this task 1, and it will tell me, let's see object that I depend upon. And task 1 depends upon no table, no query, no form, no reports. That's kind of interesting. But here's what depends on me. So let's look at task 1 because it's kind of it's an anomaly, and it's what's in here. So let's open it up, click on it, and what do we have? We have another table. Okay? And this is one we probably did a little bit of work with, designed with it. Click on these and let's see, for example, if we have any drop-down menus or anything of that sort. No, not really. Let's look into the design view and see what we've got there. We've got something quite interesting right here. Let's look at this in the design view. Now, in queries, you have typically 3 views: the data set view, or what we call a result set view, then the design view. Those two are a lot like the toolbar and the output in Excel. Then you have the SQL view. So we can go down to that level and see the query. But we'll go back up to the design view. And it's going to show us that we pulled the certain drug codes. Let's look at this at the bottom. You see them on the criteria. And Switch this over just a bit. And these are probably drug codes either that the government was interested in or not interested in. I don't remember. But we said, okay, if we wanted to filter out those that the government's not interested in, which just would leave us what they're interested in, then we would use this code. Just depends on what we were trying to, which codes are which. Well, we can see we've established these criteria, okay? And this is what we want to see. And then we have the drug name, the tabs, and milligrams per tab. And we have also the supplier. So go back up to the design view. We have the drugs that fit a particular code. Okay? Makes sense? Once you start navigating around this and look at it, you start going, oh, okay, I get this. And when you make the connection that you're going to go work, I'm going to use a product that will probably draw from a database, but it'll pop it up in something that looks a lot like, suspiciously like Excel, then you understand what we're trying to do here and understand what's going on out there in the world in terms of being able to grab all this data and work with it. We'll look at task number 2. And let's open it up. Here's another query. All right. Now this time we have something interesting because we've used an expression. You say, what are you talking about? Well, notice that we've got these drug codes, the drug name, the supplier, the number of tabs, the milligrams per tab, and we have a total usage. Let's go down to the design view and look at that. And you're going to see down here in design view, you're going to see the expression. Okay. Now I'm going to try to squinch that over there just a little bit. And then I'll throw it up here on this little yellow tab so you can see it. Now, again, as I've said about 1,000,000 times, and you're probably tired of hearing it, let Excel be Excel and Access be Access. And let the two of them, if you can work them together, give you a nice type of application. Here we've got total usage followed by a colon. So it's we're telling the machine we're going to do an expression of some type. And then we have tabs. That's we have it in brackets. If you don't spell it exactly like they have it if you don't spell that field name exactly as it's spelled in the table, you'll get a parameter error, which means they'll go, I don't get this. You're calling up something that doesn't exist. So we've got tabs, and then we're taking that times the milligram per tab. Okay? Now, if I've got 1, 10, 1,000, or 1,000,000 records, okay, I'll run that and it'll give me all of them. But if I want to do something with this to put it into context, then I'm going to have to take it into some application that will let me give it context. So I'm going to close this off for a minute. Let's go back up to the data view. Now, I can do a little bit of preliminary work over here in Access with the sum and all of that, okay? And we played around with that a little bit using the sum function, all that. But the truth is, if I really want to do some good work with it, I'm probably going to be putting it into Excel. Everybody got me there? Now, here's the deal. When you work with something like SAS Visual Analytics, Oracle, SAP, or SAS, that transition is already made for you. It's already done for you. The application does that for you so that you can run the kinds of analytics or do the kind of data visualization that you want to do given what you're looking at. Now, here, if this is what I had, and I was working in Access, I'm down at the local wherever, and they say, oh, you can do Access, okay, you're hired. You can do Excel, yeah, you're down. Excel, we'll make you president. So you're good to go. So now you want to export this over. I'd throw it in a pivot table. I'd see what I might be able to do with filters and sorts to see what it looks like, maybe use some conditional formatting. You could do some charting, okay? You could use some VLOOKUP if you wanted to. Let me say this. Many of you did some wonderful jobs writing conditional statements, and you have my great commendation for that. Then I saw where you used a VLOOKUP, and you go, And if you're like me and you're lazy, I'm using a VLOOKUP every chance I get, or a SUMIF, or something like that. Now, the conditional statements I saw were excellent, and they're good. And sometimes you have to do that, but if you have a choice to use a function that's going to be a little bit more of a database-oriented function, if you've got to do like VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, or say SUMIF, okay, or COUNTIF, you're better off doing that. But everybody did pretty well. I was pretty happy about that. This task 2, well, we'll close it off. And we'll do the database tools, okay, and let's do the object dependencies. And see, the objects depend on me, and there's a task 2 report, which makes sense. And objects that I depend on, and I depend on the cascade table, okay? So this is pretty much old hat, no big deal. It really is. When you go to work, if you're working for a big company and they're using one of the top grade commercial products, you'll just sit there and go, I didn't know life could be this easy. And what will start to amaze you is how much stuff you can get so quickly. The charting capabilities, for example, in SAS Visual Analytics will just blow your mind, because you're just going, oh man, I can just click and it gives me this beautiful table. And it's designed to do that for one reason. You're a decision maker. You're not a programmer. So that whole application is set up to allow you to recognize signature, okay? I've probably told this story before, but I will tell it again in case I haven't. One of the most interesting lectures I went to was given by one of the Argentinian pilot who took out one of the British not carriers, but one of their destroyers during the war at the Falklands. And what he had a French Mirage jet, and what he did was basically, he knew that first of all, the minute he popped up on the horizon, that the Harriers, British Harriers that were out circling, protecting the fleet, were going to nail him. So what he did was he flew around the coast below their radar, okay? And then every now and then on a random blip, he'd pop up. And if he saw a signature that he thought he could tackle, he'd fire. And and that jet has a fire and forget system where you press it, you put it on the target, you get a sound, a buzz, a noise, press the button and gone, and you're out of there. Because the minute that somebody sees your heat signature, they're coming after you. So he popped up and he saw the signature of that destroyer, and he put those crosshairs, fired, and was back down. So if he hadn't known how to recognize, if he didn't know the signatures, chances are if he'd have shot, say, at an aircraft carrier, that one missile wouldn't have done anything. Aircraft carriers are highly valuable assets, and they've got all kinds of coverage. But destroyers may be a little bit down the food chain, so they're not as well protected, and they can't carry all of that because they've got to be able to be fairly agile. And he said, his target of choice was a carrier, and he took it out, one shot. And he really didn't need any more. For you as business people, pattern recognition is everything. So if you're looking at sets of data, and I'll give you a really good example. I think I probably talked about it some this past couple weeks. The yield curve. In fact, our speakers who were here came and talked about the inverted yield curve. The inverted yield curve is pretty simple. The hump is on the far left, and the x-axis is time, and the y-axis is return on investment. And when you have an inverted yield curve, what that means is the return on the investment is higher in the short run than in the long run, because people don't have faith in the future, which is not a good situation to be in. Well, let's look at this, and we'll look at task 4, and we'll go over here and take a look at the design view for it. Okay, and we've done a search, a text search. I'll close that off here for a minute. And what we looked for here was a manufacturer, and they were named Roche. Looks like you can see that we've got the date, the drug code, the drug name, the supplier, and the criterion is Roche, H-R-O-C-H-E. And so anything that they sell, we've got a record of that. So we'll go back up to the result view, and there we are. And you say, that's kind of annoying when I look at Roche. Okay, that's true, I get it. So let's go back down to the design view, all right? And what we're going to do is on the supplier, I'm going to suppress that. And I do that by clicking, and then we'll go back up. And Roche is missing. You say, oh, that's no good. Now what? Well, one of the things we're going to do, we're going to save this, okay? And then we're going to telegraph what's here. Telegraph meaning we're going to give it a title that means something. And so instead of task 4, we're going to put Roche products. Got it? That way, when we open the query, we know that this is stuff that we get from Roche or Roche. I'm not sure how you would pronounce it. And we can go back up, and once we're through, we can open it back up. Now you say, well, how do I know I didn't make a mistake? Well, you can go into the design view and you'll see that the criterion was Roche, okay? And we suppress that. That's just one of the ways when we use it's like an input mask kind of, I guess, or we title it or we telegraph. Telegraph is the word most people use is, I'm going to telegraph the meaning of this, and this is what I get from Roche. Not any big deal. Now, below are the reports, which, as I've told you before, can become quite unwieldy, in Access. Better commercial products are going to show you, they're just going to give you much better output. Here's one that Access can handle, and this one is, they've got three fields. The more fields you get, the more complicated it becomes for all intents and purposes. And here's just it's a standard usage report of drug code, okay? And it's sorted by code and then the drug name. And it looks like to me that the drug names are put into ascending order. And then you get the total usage, and you also have subtotals there for that, okay? And they walk you through each one of those drugs page. So when you get beyond beyond 4, maybe 5 fields, the space is going to get crowded, and you're going to be messing around a lot with just trying to do formatting when you really just need to have something you can communicate well to an end user. Then we'll click open here, and here again we've got again a nice, we've got these by drug code, we've got them by supplier, and this is probably the stuff that the government either did or did not want, because we've got all these B codes. I can't remember which it was. but we made the choice up with the query. Then finally, we open this up here. Okay, it says this task does not exist. Okay. Ah, okay. Well, let's do this. Let's just delete that, Jules, since and we'll delete it. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's go over for a few minutes. And again, this one, this you could upload for the workshop for task 4, workshop 4. Excuse me. Let's look at the garden database that is with the Lambert text. Excuse me. And I'll open it up. Now again, before you do that, it's from chapter 11, and they will walk you through. And when you see there, for example, take a look at this this form. They've got the company logo in there. And you remember when we went into the zip file and drilled down, we found the database plus an icon plus a logo. We can customize forms that have things on them that just make them more user-friendly or more palpable to work with as we fill tables. So let's look down here for a moment at this garden table, and I'm going to enable the content, and then I'm going to save it on my desktop. Okay. Let me stop. I've been kind of rattling along here. Anybody have a question I can try to help you with? Anybody? Okay, it's telling me I'm going to have to give it a different name. That's fine. I'll do it. Now, let's save this jewel in the desktop and see it. All right. Okay. If you don't have a question. Now, this one's a little more complicated. And notice we've got some tables here. We've got categories, customers, employees. These are what we call dimension tables. These are like variables, okay? And so you'll see these, and let's look at these for just a minute. These are also what we use in what we call a process of normalization. And normalization is a pretty simple concept. It's just like when you write a paragraph should express one single thought. And you ought to either have a thesis sentence at the start or a concluding sentence at the middle, at the end, and then everything in the middle supports those. Well, normalization is the same way to make sure that we take advantage of the ability to relate tables to each other. Let's look at this categories table for a minute, and these are just different types of plants, I guess, that these people carry. And I would bet you anything, if we go down into the design view on this jewel, that we're going to find, there it is. Now, this is done fairly professionally because we've got a primary key. Everybody sees the little key there, and it's an auto number, which means each new category we get, it gets its own unique number. Okay. Then we've got the category name. Okay. And see how they're good people here? Lambert knows how to do a database. Required, yes. Zeroing, no. And then we see the description. Okay. Now this is not good because they don't require the description, although you probably should, and you shouldn't allow zero links. So we're going to fix this right now. I'm going to put yes, it's required. Allow zero length, no. Indexed, no. Now you may ask about the index. Let me talk about that just real quickly. It's a little beyond this course, but basically here's what they're talking about when you put indexing in. An index in a database is like an algorithm, and it's one that controls how searches are conducted based on the type of data that you're searching for. Say the data in a field when you run a query. If you've got data that are, and there's a course over the computer science program that they teach you all this stuff. It's called data structures. But let's say you have names. We know that names tend to cluster around a particular set of letters. So an index of names, it'll go to that cluster of letters and search through there first because, well, that's where they're likely going to be. Okay, if you on any given Sunday afternoon, if you want to find out where the people who are fans of the Dallas Cowboys, you're going to find them in one of two places. You're either going to find them at the stadium there at Jerry's World, or you're going to find them at home watching TV. The Cowboys game. Well, we know that out in nature with letters, numbers, things of that nature, things like that, we know there are patterns. And so the indexing helps the machine do a faster search. Now, it's nothing really noticeable to you and me, but once you start to talk about a huge number of cases, it becomes quite important. But if you really want to see indexing in its best, search Google. I'll do that right now. Let's just see. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to open up a new tab. And I'm going to look for name, Cathedral. Sad. I've seen it a few times. I'm happy I have. My wife are going back over there in a few weeks. That's going to be a bummer. Now, if you take a look at what's on my screen, I think that says 469 million results in 1 second. That's pretty fast. And they give me stories, video, all kinds of things. As I understood it, they got the works of art out of there because they were doing some work on the thing anyway. But as what I heard last is that they got all of the really precious stuff out of there. The sad part is some of the timbers that were in Notre Dame Cathedral were from 1100. It's been there almost 1,000 years. And our if you're a Baptist or a Protestant, your ancestors, if they were Huguenots, went into Paris and tried to burn the thing down. So it's had its moments. But now we're all, we're Protestants, and here I'm going, well, but my world is back then and said, torch it. People took religion in ways maybe they shouldn't have, like we do today. Okay, so let's go back here and go back and take a look at that database, the garden, okay? And we'll open it back up. And so we got the description. And then notice we also have some others like customers, employees, order details, orders, products, shippers, and suppliers. Now, open up the orders, and what you should see is a fact table. I'm going to move the shutter back, and here we are. We have the order ID, the customer ID, the account rep, the date that was ordered, the date it was shipped, who shipped it, the freight charge, the shipper name, who we shipped it to, their address, the city, okay? On and on and on. The country, was there a required date on it? On the RUB. And it's a fact table because it's full of facts, stuff that happened. Who, what, when, where, how much. So with this type of data, again, I'd want to take this jewel, and if I were really want to do some analysis with it, because I've got a few cases here and pretty complex set of data. So I'd take that and probably export it. But let's close it off for a moment. And let's go back over here and we'll close the categories table off as well. And we'll open up the navigation pane. And we'll see here some products, shippers, suppliers, again, the order details. Now, click up on the top where it says database tools, okay? And let's see if we have any tables that are related to each other. And we do. When we talk about what we call a relational database, what that means is that we are able to relate tables one to the other using primary keys, or what we call the parent-child system. Now, you'll notice if you look at the orders table, it's kind of in the big middle of everything. And that makes sense. It's a record of transactions. It's a fact table. So it's also what we would call a production table, because it's a record of what we've produced, i.e. the orders that we've filled. And you can notice now, if you look here, you'll notice you see the employees table, and you've got the employees table and its tie-in. And I want to show you something. Take your cursor, all right, and click on one of those lines, and then you'll see edit relationship. Okay. Now it's going to show you the parent and the child here. Usually the parent is on the left hand, the child, it's just a shorthand so we can know. Yeah. And it's also because when we have a primary key in a table that makes every record unique, if we bury that field into another, okay, if we bury it into another one, then what we have there is we have that we have a relationship between the two tables, and that field that was a primary key in one table that's in another table, if it's not designated as a primary key in the second table, it's what we call a foreign key, parent-child. And notice that this says enforce the referential integrity, which means they have to match the employee ID and the account rep. Makes sense, right? Every employee would have their own unique ID, and then they would have their account rep ID. Now, click on this little tab that says join type. And this will show you the 3 types of joins. Now I'm going to use a word that will make you all shudder. It's called Venn diagram. I can see the chills going up your spines. You're not geometry again, or logic. Well, we have 3 kinds of joins. One is what we call an inner join, and that's, as they say here, where we only include the rows where the join fields from both tables are equal. If you remember back to your Venn diagram, you had circle A, circle B, and then where the 2 circles intersected, that was the results that you got if you did an inner join. Now, if you do an outer join, a left outer join, then in this case, you're going to need all of the stuff that's in the employees table, and then the stuff where the 2 tables match. This is a strategic choice or an informational need choice on your part, okay? Or if you do a right outer join, okay, then you get everything in the right-hand table, which in this case would be the orders. So you get all the stuff in the orders table, and then also the only records where the 2 tables match up. You see it? It's pretty simple. And if you remember some of your set theory, that's why we started out with set theory, because we looked at it. Now we could see, and all of these databases, they will have a design, okay? And if you look at this, you could see that, for example, on customer, okay? I have one unique customer who can engage in an infinite number of sales, and I pray they do. Okay? I have one employee who could be involved in an infinite number of orders placed, and I hope they do. They will get a bonus. On the other hand, I have the order details, and that's an infinite number of them. And then I have one shipper. So I can have one shipper who sends a whole bunch of stuff for us, more than one. As you start to look at this, you start to say, oh, there is a pattern. This is kind of what we would call a star, because you can see these tables are all kind of congregated around the orders table. And when we have what we call like a production table or production database, this is what we get. You folks see that? Yay? Nay? Anybody not? Let me know. Now, this happens only by design. Let's put these up here so they're more, a little more symmetry in them. And I would sit down and I would say, okay, here are the dimension tables I need, the variables, and then based on that, I want a fact table or a production table like the orders. And then I would begin to relate the two of them together. And notice I can relate them because I have fields that are the same. That's why we call this a relational database. Okay? Not any big deal about it. And we can join tables together if we care to do so, as long as we have two fields that match up. And you'll see that in the orders, I have the customers, I have order details. Order details is an interesting table, but because if you look at it, you'll notice you've got two primary keys. You say, what's the point of that? Well, it's pretty simple. Think about it. I have an order number, okay, which is unique. If I have an order that's unique, then I've sold a product, and each product is unique. So I want to make sure that I have a unique number for the order and a unique number for the product, so I'm certain about what I sold. Does it make sense? That's the thing about this. It's just all common sense. It's some fairly pretty rudimentary levels of logic, but you can see if I can take 10,000 of these tables or 50,000 of them, I don't know what limit there is at Google at their server farms and what they handle, but if I can take 100,000 tables and link them together, I can find out a lots of stuff about people, about what they do, about what they buy, etc. There's a famous story about Target that has an exceptionally good tracking system, and it was a person who was a young lady who she was pregnant, so she was going online at Target and buying stuff that a pregnant person would buy. Okay, well, her family started getting stuff from Target in the mail because they had linked the database and the online sales with their direct mail marketing, and mom and dad are getting ads for Pampers, and they're going, why are we getting ads for Pampers? Why are we getting ads for baby wipes? Why are we getting ads for formulas? And it's an urban legend, but there's probably something like that floating around out there. That's why when you buy something or you go and look and search for something, you're going to see banner ads and right side banner ads on the right, top or bottom all the time of your browser. You'll probably see videos, you'll see product pop-ups, all kinds of things, because once the sharks smell blood, they're coming for you. This is going to be something you guys are going to have to figure out, is how do we handle the convenience of me being able to shop and find stuff, or me being able to go to Amazon, and Amazon says, hey, welcome back, blah, 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 with the potential and, well, the potential and the real abuses of that system that we know are out there. How do you marry up those two, and how do you handle them, especially with financial institutions? When you're dealing with really sensitive data, or you're dealing with people, with folks' credit scores, got to be careful about that. So this just kind of gives you a sense of that potential. Now, when you hear people talk about big data, okay, here's what they're really talking about. They're saying, okay, I've got stuff out here like tweets, likes and dislikes on Facebook. I've got photos on Instagram. I've got Yelp notifications, on and on and on. How do I clean all that data up and put it into tables so I can query it? All right. And so there's a couple of our programming is out there now, which is a way that we can go out and deal with what we call what we would call big data, or non-parametric or unsupervised type data, and go out and grab it and then try to put it into nice columns. There's also out there products that say no SQL, which means they can analyze without using a traditional database product system. They're still being perfected and worked on. The holy grail is to be able to go out there and capture stuff and look at that and put something together. This, plus the analytic engines that are out there, the ability to do all kinds of statistical analysis, and ultimately the ability to do all kinds of visualizations of data are going to give you some incredible kinds of skills. So by the time you're at my age and stage of your career, you'll be doing stuff that's so fantastic it's hard to even imagine. And it'll all be on your desktop. It'll all be icon. You probably won't even have a machine. You'll just go in and activate a surface, and away you go. You're going to see some incredible changes, and you're going to. And the big challenge is how do we control this technology, make sure it works for us and we don't work for it. And in the management science course, for example, we have a case where we deal with email. And if you're like me, you get email and you're fighting the battle all the time with folders and this and that. And there are companies out there that will handle your email for you. You'll train them how to, this goes here, this goes there. Oh, it's trash, get rid of it. And if you're using Office 360, and if you're using our client here, you probably now and then will get a little an email that says Microsoft clutter. Do you really want this stuff? And that's one of the ways that the filters that they apply it. Well, we started a little bit earlier. I think we went through this fairly well. Now, again, come down and take a look at some of the queries. And then we've talked about forms a little bit, but I'll look at this just real quickly. Okay. And you can see this is just, we've added in a little bit of, they've added in, it's the form for categories, for the category table. We've talked about this where I'm inputting some data, I can search through it, etc. The one thing we haven't looked at yet or talked about, and I'll just do this real quickly, is an update query. And let's look at this, and we'll go into the design view, okay? And this is just a particular type. If you look at the toolbar up top, you'll see it says update. This is where we go in and we change a table. Let's say that a company's changed its name, or they have a new address or a new phone number or something like that. Well, here, okay, if we're looking at this, we've got a category, and what we've done is they have their cacti and their bulbs. If you look at the category names, bulbs or cacti, and what they've done is they're updating the price, they're raising it by 10%. And you can see it where it says unit price times 1.1. Pretty typical use of an update query. 90% of all queries are select, but we have some of these specialized queries that we use. Anything else? And again, chapter 11, they'll walk you right through all of that. Reports, records. No. Okay, folks, thank you so much. Anybody have a question I could try to help you with? Okay. All right. we'll stop the share then, and I'll end the meeting. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it much.